anyways, just before we get started, or maybe this is part of the start, listening, we talk about what's going on in Ottawa and all these, and people all over the place, and they don't want us to know. Why would they? And then there's so many things that are pointing, you can't hide it. And then I got thinking, when we were talking about, we see some protests that are crazy and violent and all that stuff, and then we see this one, and then, we're supposed to pray for our leaders, and then I get mad because I just want to take it. Anyway, I'm not going to say it, I'm not taking it. But yeah, we are supposed to pray for, because God changes the hearts He can change these hearts, and so we're supposed to. But I got thinking, where is that? And it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. It says, where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through its wisdom did not know him, and God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. It goes on a bit more and it says, brothers, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards, not many were influential, and not many were of noble birth, but God chose the foolish things. That's me. That's you. God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. And God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. And he chose the lowly things of the world and the despised things, and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast for himself. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God. That is our righteousness. Aren't you glad that God doesn't call us what we did, but he calls us what Christ did? He calls us holy. He calls us loved, beloved. He calls us so many things because of what Christ did. Why didn't he call us what we did? He doesn't. He calls us what Christ did. And he took us, and he takes the weak, and he will shame the world. He will take, he'll take who I am or who you are, and he'll make the wise in the world look foolish. It's not even hard. He could use me all day long to make the wise in the world look foolish. And here we are, and I just got thinking about that. Man, that's where we're at right now. You can't deny it. And I was watching Rich Wilkerson this morning, Jr., talking, and he had a couple things. And this is my church service, okay? So not that I don't learn from what I speak, but it's kind of over a week, so I got to get my church service in. So I was listening to him, and he was just talking, and I couldn't help but think of, first one that came out was Sherry. You're there. There you are. So I couldn't, but then I think there's other people that have hurts and pains and this and that. And he just was talking about Paul, and I've asked God 3 times to take away my thorn in the flesh. I asked him 3 times, but he said, my grace is sufficient. And what he said is, sufficient means just enough. Just enough. My grace is sufficient for you. And so he didn't take it away. And he said, you look at a rose, and it's so beautiful, but it's got thorns. Why has it got thorns? To protect it from the predators. Why do we once in a while have thorns in our flesh? Why do we have thorns sometimes? Is to protect us from our pride. Because pride is a predator. And I'm not saying that you can't get healed, but I'm just saying sometimes God protects us from pride. And it wasn't many years ago, God's worship leader was cast out of heaven because he was full of pride. And so anyways, he talked about that. And I thought about Sherry, but then other people too that have struggles. Sometimes we got to know that my grace is sufficient. My grace is just enough for you at this time. And what he does in the future, I don't know, but that's God. And he's big, and he decides those things. So anyways, and then from there, I was just singing, and Cindy had to leave because it got ugly. And I was trying to sing, and I was like, darn it, Lord, give me a voice. And then I remember Stephen Furtick singing, and he said, you just sing, you got one note, just sing it. So I was just singing. It's a new song, and I'm not the worship leaders or anything like that, but I'm telling you right now, we're going to learn this song, and it's called, what is it called? It's a new one. This is the Kingdom of Heaven, it's called. Holy moly, is it awesome. Google it or whatever you do. This is the Kingdom of Heaven. Seek first the kingdom of God, and these things will be added unto you. And it goes on from there. He will fill you. He will fill every need. This is the kingdom of God. Seek first the kingdom of God. It shall be added. Knock, and it you shall receive. The door shall be open. It's like, man, is it good? And it's a great worship song. And what blew me away watching this is God's Spirit will be poured out in the last days. God's Spirit will be poured out in the last days. And these people, and I was watching Maverick City Music, and they're going all over the place. And this one, I can't remember who was singing it. Pat Bennett was singing or something. Anyways, or Barnett, and he was singing it, and it was a youth convention, and it was just massive, building massive, and the kids were just singing to God in praise and tears, and it's happening everywhere.
Awesome.
And you wouldn't think that it is, because the world don't want you to know that. God's Spirit is falling, it is rolling, it's rolling. We better be ready to be rolled, because the Spirit is pouring out, and I don't know, last days kind of looks like His last days. I will pour my Spirit out, and you can't deny His Spirit is being poured out. So anyways, there's the pre-service service. Let's open in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for who you are. Thank you that your grace is sufficient. In all our struggles, successes, victories, defeats, your grace is sufficient. May we never believe that it was us, but Lord, it was you that got us here today. I thank you that you looked out over our lives wherever we were, and you said, it's time now. It's time. That one is mine. And so I pray that you would continue to work in our lives, and we would be lights for you, that your children would go out and gather more children by the power of your Holy Spirit, and more people would come home to you, Father. May that be, and I know that's your heart, that your children, you died for everyone, that everyone would come to know your name. And pray, Lord, that you would use us. Open our hearts and our minds to hear what you have to say. In your precious name, amen. So, if you have your Bibles today, it's Genesis chapter 32. We've been in Mark a lot, and we've learned a lot about Jesus. And he's not the nice, cuddly Jesus. He's not the jewelry Jesus. You know, he's not that guy. Many times he is not. He is, Jesus would confront. He was actually confrontational. He would never condemn. That's the job of the devil. But we learned a little bit about Jesus in Mark, because Mark was a guy that just wrote it the way it was. Anyways, but now it's time, because I love the Old Testament, I think it's time to jump back in and do a little bit of stuff with some of the old patriarchs. So Genesis chapter 32. And the best part of this is it's alive today. It's going to be, you're going to see it in your life here today. So Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 through 31. And I'll be jumping around a little bit more in Genesis as well, and also Exodus. So anyways, chapter 32, verse 22. So that night, so this is Jacob, he's got to go and make things right with his brother. That's the setup. So that night Jacob got up and he took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants. Right off the bat, you're going, I like this place. He took his he had 2 wives and 2 maidservants? This is good. I'm going to come to this church. But then really think about it. I don't know. He was crazy. Because last time I checked, I could barely handle 1. Because she's so awesome. Her awesomeness just overcomes me. See how I crawl into that one? So that night, Jacob got up and he took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And after he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone. And this is when God really does stuff. This is when God really moves, is when we are alone. Like you go to the wilderness, you go to where it's quiet, because God needs for you to hear him. And when a hustle and bustle of the city life, and I'm not picking on cities, but it's loud, it's busy, your life is busy, it's hard to hear God. It's hard to hear him and to see him move, and everything's so busy. So he is also, Jacob was left alone. It's time for God to do something. And a man wrestled with him till daybreak. So this man, many of the philosophers, many of the people, the Bible scholars say that it was Jesus. Some say it was an angel, but it was from heaven. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that the hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. And the man said, "Let go of me, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." And Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" And then he blessed him there. And so Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "This is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." We'll stop right there. So anyways, this is Jacob. He's complicated. We're going to talk, anybody complicated? Maybe you won't admit it, but has your husband ever said, "You are complicated"? Has that ever happened? Anybody just stick up their hand and just say, "I'm complicated"? I'm complicated. You're complicated, you're complicated. How come it's just the women? Because us men, we know. We just know we're just so perfect, right? No. Okay. So anyways, we're going to pick somebody. He's a man. He's very complicated. But there's a lot of people that are complicated. Why pick Jacob? Because if you look in the Bible, there's a lot of people that are complicated. David, King David, was complicated. He was a king. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that there is someone, a man after my heart like David. God said, there's no one more like him with a heart after me. There's no one. But yet he fell in love with a woman he was not married to. He saw her bathing. He was supposed to be out fighting wars in the spring. He got lazy. He stayed behind. He had men fighting for him. One of the men fighting for him, that was his wife. He had a sexual encounter with her. She got pregnant. I got to cover this up. Take him to the front line and have him killed. He's complicated. David's very complicated. We can talk about complicated people. What about Peter? He's complicated. Peter's very complicated. He was the one that spoke at Pentecost. Jesus said, "You're going to speak in 50 days." When he came back, Jesus said, "In 50 days, you're going to speak for me. And people are going to get saved. The church is going to be born." But before that, he looked at Jesus and said, "I will do anything for you." But Jesus said, "You will deny me 3 times. Not one, not twice, but 3 times before the rooster crows." Peter was complicated. And there's many other people in the Bible that are complicated. Abraham, father of so many generations, as the stars are in the sky or the sand is by the ocean, that will be your offspring. But Abraham, he had his issues too. And Abraham was a bit of a liar at times in his beginning. So he didn't tell the truth all the time. So he was complicated. Noah, he never heard of rain coming down from the sky because it came up as mist from the ground. But he was told that it was going to fall from the heavens. And so you got to make a boat. So he made a boat. This is great. But then after that, and then it talks about him getting drunk, and it got kind of a little crazy. And he's kind of complicated. And so there's a lot of people that are complicated. Moses was complicated. Moses was to set my people free. God said, "You're going to set my people free." But just before that, Moses was, he was a killer on the run. He killed a Hebrew. No, he killed an Egyptian. Sorry, he killed an Egyptian because he was beating a Hebrew, and he killed him, and then he had to run. So he's complicated. But we're not going to talk about those people today. And if you think what I'm trying to say here is, there's a lot of complicated people in the Bible. Whether it be David or Peter or Abraham or Noah or Moses, those are patriarchs. Those are the good ones, right? Those are the guys that really God worked through, but yet they're complicated If you are a complicated person, you are in good standing order with others. Don't ever think that because you are complicated, because you are maybe a bit broken in a few areas, that you can't be. Don't think that you have to be perfect to fall into God's perfect plan. You don't have to be. You don't have to be. And the whole Bible is full of broken people that God will use. God will use the foolish people to prove the wise wrong. I just read that out of 1 Corinthians. God will use whoever He chooses. But I got my hand up saying, I want to be used, God. So that's where we need to be. So anyways, we're gonna look at Jacob, and I don't know how long we're gonna talk about this whole area, but we'll talk about it for a little bit. And did anybody watch the service on the internet or whatever? What's the cool way of saying it? YouTube. Anybody watch that? You watched it? Okay, you're in my well. Okay, so, no, I'm just kidding. But I'm just wondering, because what I want to do, I talked about chains last week, and then I got thinking about what I'm going to talk about now, and I kind of want to reintroduce the chain. So and I was hoping Brooklyn would be here again, but she's not, so I'll have to use someone else. So, anyways, I'll decide who that's going to be. So, anyways, we're going to talk about a complicated person. We're going to look into the complicated life of Jacob. And so, Genesis chapter 25, verse 21. We're going to hop back. So, what we saw right here, what we read in chapter 32, this is Jacob going back. Okay, so he's done some stuff. This guy is 96 years old at this point in time. He's not 25 or 30 years old. He is 96 years old. He's 6 years older than Ed. And he's going back to make peace with his brother Esau because he's done some things that he shouldn't have. That's what we're talking about. But I want to go back a little bit and talk about in Genesis chapter 25, the beginning of the complicated life of Esau and Jacob. So, Genesis chapter 25, verse 21. So maybe I'll back up a little bit. This is the account of Abraham's son, Isaac. And Abraham became the father of Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah. Okay? So this is Jacob and Esau's death we're talking about. And he was married to Rebekah, 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of, Bethuel, the Aramean. Say it like you know it. You guys won't know if I say it wrong. So the Aramean from Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban of Aramean. So Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And the Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant, and the babies jostled each other within her. And she said, "Why is this happening?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. That's a big question. Why is this happening? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and this is something too, that when things are happening, you go, why is this happening? It's good that you have somebody that you can speak to in confidence, that you really can talk to, that they can pray for you. But at the same time, it's also good to go to the Lord. And this is what she did. This is very wise. So she went to inquire, what is going on? They're fighting inside of me. Why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. That's not how birthrights work. That's not how blessings work at this time. The younger will not serve the older will not serve the younger. That's not how it works. So anyways, she has these, babe, why is this happening? They're fighting inside of you. And then the birth of these twin boys, Jacob and Esau and Jacob. First comes out of the womb, Esau, and he comes out, and they said that he's red. He was a red man. He was a red baby, okay? He was red. He had red hair, and I don't know what else. He had red skin, it kind of even said. So he comes out, and hanging on to his ankle was Jacob. Right from the start, he's trying to get ahead. He's just, I'm not going to let go. I want to get ahead, but he couldn't. If I was 5 seconds earlier, I could have got the birthright and the blessing, because there's 2 of these things that are offered to the firstborn. The one, so you get the birthright, but then your birthright is, but it's a double portion. And then, the other things are given, the blessings. Yes, you all get blessed, but the firstborn gets the best. And so right from the start, Jacob is trying to get ahead. And it's a fight. And for anybody that thinks that we are not born into sin, why in the world do we have to teach our kids to say yes, or to share, or to all these things? Because I've heard my household was very perfect, very quiet and loving. Okay, but I've heard other places, other homes, what happened, and in my home especially, like it was me. You know what I'm saying? When they're little, it's me. It's all about me, mine. It's mine. And so Grace and Faith both have something, and they're fighting over it's mine. It's not like, yeah, well, just give it to you. No, there's none of that going on. You have to teach them to share. You don't have to teach them to say no. You don't have to teach them to say mine. You have to teach them to say yes or share. These are the things. And that's why I say, if you think that we are not born into original sin, I think right even there. And so here comes Jacob. He's holding on to Esau's ankle as he comes out. He wants to be first. And this is funny. I want to talk about first. And maybe I'm picking on Grace and Faith, but it was always at our household, always me first. They couldn't say first, so it was me first, and everything was me first. And so they would come at you, and they would be both tackling me first. And so you'd go to town, and we had to remember, Cindy. I know you've tried to forget about this. You had to hold their hands. Remember that? And they would cry as soon as you let go. And they would bawl, and Grandpa went with them one time, and Cindy was holding on to their hands, and as soon as you let go, they would cry. And this one wanted your hand first, and it was a battle, and finally you guys stopped, and Cindy took the kids out and took snow in their faces, and oh yeah, we'll take that. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Anyways, it happened. So this is this me first mentality, and Jacob has it. I love Grace and Faith. I do, don't get me wrong. But these are the things, this me first mentality, and Jacob had it. If I could have been 5 seconds earlier. And so he, from the beginnings, he has been trying, he wants, you want everything the world's got to offer, and you want it bad. C.S. Lewis says it's not about, and I won't get the quote right, but I read it, it's not about getting your possession. It's not about having your possessions that really thrills us. It's about us having more possessions than the next guy. That's what he said. We get more of a thrill that we have more or better than the next guy. It's not about just having it, but it's more than that guy. And so comes keeping up with the Joneses. And so anyways, this has been a chase for Jacob his whole life. And so he wants the birthright, he wants the blessing, and so the birthright happens. It's time. And Esau had the birthright already. It was already his. And so the story goes, he goes out hunting. He comes home hungry. He is just about ready to die. He said, here I am dying. Esau is a hunter. And so this represents, I think, men. And I've said it for years. Jacob and Esau represent basically all of men in this world. You've got the hunter, you've got the guy that's dirty, you've got the tradesman, you've got the guy that's got dirt under his fingernails, the guy that's outside working all the time. He's that guy. That is the Esau. And then you've got the three-piece suit guy. The guy that he's dressed nice all the time. He doesn't have dirt under his fingernail. I guess I'm an Esau. He doesn't have dirt under his fingernails. Everything is right about him. He has everything just in order. Where Esau could live in a cardboard box, probably. And Jacob's going to have everything. And so those are the two types of men. And the more I think about it, those are our types of men. My son Griffin is more of a Jacob. He doesn't really, and that's okay that you're a Jacob or an Esau. But this has been a fight. And so Esau is a hunter. He's out hunting. He comes home. I guess he didn't get much. He needed something to eat. Jacob is sitting there because Jacob liked to hang out around the tents with the women. That's where he hung out. And so Esau was the hunter. He didn't have much luck that day. He comes home, and he must have been gone for a while. He comes home, and he needs something to eat. And Jacob's like, really? Because I got a bowl of lentils. You really want it, Esau? He said, why are you withholding it? I'm almost ready to die. And he just says, well, how about we do a trade? And I'll trade for your birthright this bowl of lentils. And so he trades it, and that's sometimes giving up the future for the now. And we make bad decisions that way when we think short term, where we give up the future for something we want right now. And so Jacob gets the birthright, and he's not happy with just the birthright. He wants more. He wants more. He needs more. Have you ever lived in the land of Ur? Did you know that's where Abraham came from? The land of Ur. Well, I think all of us live in the land of Ur. I want to be fit, Ur. I want to be rich, Ur. I want to be smart, Ur. I want to be stronger. I just don't want to be strong. I want to be stronger. I don't want to just be rich. I want to be richer. But there's always somebody else that's He's richer than me, or he's smarter than me, right? And so I think we all kind of live in, am I wrong? I want to be smarter. I want to be smarter. I just don't want to be, I want to be better. So we all kind of live in that land of Ur. And so Jacob was really living in that land of Ur. And so he had the birthright, but he wanted more. And it was time for the blessing to be doled out. And so their dad said to Esau, who was his favorite, you never say that, generally speaking, who your favorite is, but he was a hunter, and Isaac was kind of all over that. He liked that. Go hunt, bring back something good, and it's time for the blessing of Esau. Rebecca, looking out for her Jacob, he knew how to cook and all that stuff. She overhears, it's time for the blessing. And so Esau's gone, and he's going to find it, and it's time. Be careful what you put on your kids. Be careful how you dress up your kids. And these guys are not 25 years old. At this point in time, they are 76 years old. And so Rebecca's still making the calls on her little boy Jacob. And she says, come with me, we can dress you up. What do you mean, dress up? Who's 76? Anybody here 76? Jim, how old are you?
Just about 80.
Just about 80. So anybody closer to 76? Grandma?
78.
78. So you're 2 years older. 2 years older than Jacob getting dressed. And your mom's going to dress you up. You're going to dress. Sharon, it's time. Let's go get the blessing. Let's dress you up. Let's put some hairy stuff because Esau was hairy. And Jacob was smooth. He was a smooth operator. Okay? And we're not going to fool Isaac because he's blind, but he can still talk and he can still hear. And if we're going to get the blessing, Jacob, Mom says, Jacob, my little Jakey Poo, he's 76 years old, if we're going to get this little blessing, we got to dress you up. So come with Mom. We're going to dress you up. So they put long stuff, stuff with hairy arms, and they put kind of a smell to him because Esau had a different smell than Jacob. And so they went there and said, I'm home. And Jacob, they cooked up something that was good. And they come in and basically they fooled Esau. And Esau said, what is your name? Who are you? And this is the beginning. Who are you? What is your name? And Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your son. And here's what I got. Here's the meal. And now the meal is here, which means the blessing is here. And so Esau was out hunting. Jacob was inside. He was inside. He was smooth. He was a smooth operator. He got the blessing. And he tricked his dad. And he got the blessing. And I was like, can't you just reverse it once you find out? But I guess they couldn't. They couldn't just say, oh man, you tricked me. You tricked me. I can't, I'll reverse it because that's not right. They couldn't do that. So Esau's coming back. And this is a good question. Because we're supposed to be God-focused. Are we not? God first. We talk about it. God first. But we live in a world, a world focus. We just live, everything is about the world and what it, it's just so me. And this is where Jacob is traveling. Me. It's all about me. And in the Bible, Matthew chapter 30, verse 19, I have it here somewhere. Matthew 19, verse 30, it says that the first shall be last, and the last will be first. But Jesus and that was in Matthew, Jesus is saying that the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. But don't you know Jesus' second place is first loser? If you're in second place, you lost. But Jesus says the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And then Luke chapter 9, verse 25, it says that, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? What does it profit a man if he gains everything, if he gets the birthright, if he gets the blessing? What does it profit him if he he gets the world, but he loses his soul? And so, he's got the blessing. He's 76-year-old Jacob. He's done it. But Esau's coming home. Esau's right there, and he's good with a gun. They didn't have guns, but whatever they had spears or they had arrows. I don't know what they had. But whatever they used, he's good with one of those. And Jacob is not good with one of those. Jacob's good with a skillet. Esau's good with a gun. He has to run. And for the next 21 years, Jacob is on the run. He is keeping away from his brother Esau. And so that 21 years leads us to what we just read in Genesis chapter 32, where it's time to make things right. It's time to make things right. So he takes his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 sons, and he sends them across the river. But he stays behind, and that's when God works, is when everything gets quiet. God does his best work when things get quiet. And so this is what happens. But I find, how does this have anything to do with me? Because I think that sometimes we act like Esau when we're Jacob, and we put on clothes, and we put on masks. God will not bless who you pretend to be. God cannot bless who you pretend to be. He cannot anoint a mask. So he's waiting. And so, listen, and I don't want to take too long because I did it last week. Cindy, can you help me? So Jacob, I think you'd agree. I know you're saying, where's the ball? You got the chain. So, Jacob would you not agree that Jacob's made some bad choices? He's made some bad choices. And I used Brooklyn last week, and she did an awesome job. And Satan knows how to put it? Satan knows your abilities and your potential better than you know. And the last thing he wants is for you to be used in your potential for God. So Satan is very good at being bad. And so Satan does not come after you with a chain. He does not come after you with a chain, because if he does, you're going to run. If I come after you with this chain, aren't you just going to run? Run. She doesn't listen. So anyways, she would, if Satan comes after you with a chain, you're just saying, I see this, I see what's happening, and you run. But that's not how Satan does things. He will give you choices. And this is what I talked about last week. This is a good test. Can I even remember what I spoke about last week? He will come, and he will give you a choice. This is the choice. Are you happy with being in second place, Jacob? Are you happy with not getting the birthright? Are you happy with not getting the first blessing? Are you happy with that? Satan will come and say, I think you could do better. And so he gives you a choice. And eventually, he does more. He gives you more choices and more choices. And all of a sudden, he's got you like this from choices. He has you like this. You are tied up with choices. And those choices become habits. Now you start to do it. And I think the one I used last week was, I used to say a young man that he's with his friends, and they have some pictures, pornography pictures, and he doesn't really want to look, but okay, whatever. So he looks a little bit because he's going to be called names if he doesn't look with his buddies. And so he looks, and then that's a choice Satan will give you. And then again, all of a sudden, you think about that again. I want to look again, but one look's not enough, so I want 2 looks. And so you make another choice, and another chain, another link, and then all of a sudden you got to buy the book. And then all of a sudden you're on the internet looking. All of a sudden it controls you, and then you become 25. And you fall in love. And you look at your wife and you want to be a good husband. This isn't us, by the way. But it hurts my heart inside. And you want to be a good husband. But you've been looking at women like objects because of your choices. And you can't treat your wife the way you would want because you've been looking at them like objects. And one choice after another, all of a sudden, now he's got you in chains. And you want to be a good husband. Or say, let's flip it around. You want to be a good wife. And so you say, and you want to go be a good wife. And so you go and you want to do something. And Satan says, I got you. And so you want to do something. And so you want to do something, whatever it might be. I want to lead in worship. I want to sing. And so you go. And Satan says, no, I got you. I got you in chains now. And it all started with a choice that turned into a habit, that turned into, I can't even remember. I don't remember, but it turns into basically an addiction. It turns into your nature. It turns into your identity. I've got you. But then what I talked about, this is Jacob. I got you. He's made some bad choices. I got you. But you know what? God was always there, because when he was 76, he tricked and he got the blessing. And then for 21 years, he's on the run. Now he's 96, but he has never left. God has never left. And Paul talks about it too, because when you know God, and this is what Paul said, because Paul was talking about, I will be in chains for Christ. What kind of chains? What kind of chains are you talking about? Chains of Christ. Because those are and Kelly, right? Kelly talked. He said, I remember getting saved in a small church like this, and it was so real, and it was so good. And then we kind of got, didn't get sideways, but we kind of started doing our own thing. But God was always there, and he never let me go. And this is the chain of grace. And this is the grace that Paul was talking about, the chains of Christ. And as you've made mistakes, and as you've made bad choices, but there has been the seed planted, and you have asked Christ into your heart, but yet you have made bad choices. And Satan, because of the choices and the habits, he's got you, but there's a greater chain. And it is the chain of grace. And you get angry, you get sad, you get frustrated, and say, I can't be used by God. And so you go away. But God says, I got you. I got you. You're not going anywhere. And so you feel hurt. You don't. And this was me though. This was me though, because sometimes I say things that I shouldn't say, and I haven't preached for a long time because God, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, and so I want to walk away. And so I walked away. But God said, I got you. You are not going anywhere. That is the chain of grace. That is a greater chain than Satan has. Thanks. And so this, 96 years old now, there is the chain of grace that is still on Jacob's hands, still around his wrist, and he has not left. God has not let him go. And he has spoke to him and worked in his heart, and he said, it's time to make things right. So Jacob's like, oh, he thought he's going to kill me. He's 96 years old. He's got his... Who would have 2 wives? Let's think about this. Who has 96 years old and has 2 wives and 2? That guy he's a man's man. He must be. Anyways, he's got all this stuff and 11 children. And so he said, I gotta meet with Esau. And so they left him and they crossed that creek or the water and left Jacob alone. Oh, this is where God's going to meet him. And so an angel or Jesus came and wrestled him that night. And Jacob has been chasing He has been chasing a long time the wrong things. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And I think at 96, he's starting to think, this is not profiting me anymore. And all these things that I've been chasing are just all going to burn anyways. And he wrestles with this person from heaven. And he won't let go. He won't let go. Jacob has said, I've been holding on to a lot of things and a lot of wrong things. Right from my birth, I've been holding on to Esau. I've been trying to get ahead. And I've been holding on to the wrong things. But now I am holding on to someone who knows me and my wrongs that I have done and still chose to meet with me. I am not letting you go until you bless me. And the person's like, you gotta let me go. It's getting daybreak and I gotta get out of here. I'm not letting you go until you bless me. And so he goes and he dislocates his hip. No wonder. He's 96 years old. No wonder his hip got dislocated. So he pops it and he still won't let go. And the angel or Jesus, whoever you choose to believe, this heavenly being, asks him a question that he had many years ago. Who are you? What is your name? 21 years ago, Jacob looked at his father, who was blind, and he felt the arms that were hairy, and he's like, who are you? Are you my son Esau? I'm Esau. That was the question. Jacob said, I am Esau. But today, the angel, or Jesus, asks him again, 21 years later, who are you? And Jacob says, I'm Jacob. It took him 96 years to come to grips with who he actually was. 96 years. Who are you? Jacob. Esau, his name meant, red, ruddy, and the nation of Edom was derived from Esau. But Jacob, his name, Jacob, means heel grabber, deceiver. And that followed him around his whole life. Who are you? I'm Jacob. And when you come to terms with who you are, and you admit to God who you are, and this comes to giving your life to Christ. I am short of making anything right. Sin has overcome my life. I don't have power. I am in need of you, Christ. Come into my life. When you get to that point, when you say, hey, I'm just Marty in need of help, then God can give you a new name. And so a new name was given to Jacob, and it was Israel, which means triumphant with God. That's what it means. You were a deceiver, you were a backstabber, you were a heel grabber, but you came and you said, that's who I am. I'm not Esau, I'm Jacob. And because you admitted who you were, and God will meet you many times, not in your victories, but in your struggles. And he said, I am Jacob, and he said, now that's who you are. I will give you a new name. Israel, triumphant with God. And he did that. He did that, and the funny thing is, later on in life, and this is good, later on in life, as you read the Bible, you see that they don't always talk, they talk about Jacob sometimes, and they talk about Israel sometimes. And why, okay, so his new name is Israel. Why don't they just keep talking about Israel? That's it, we're going to talk about Israel, right? The man that was changed, the one that came to grips. After 96 years old, he finally said, this is who I am. And God changed him. Why wouldn't it be from this point on, every time we talk about the old Jacob, we're not going to call him the old Jacob, we're going to call him Israel. But it doesn't happen. It goes back and forth. A little bit of Israel, a little bit of Jacob. Why? Because change is very conflicting. Change does not happen many times overnight. And it can. I'm not saying it can't, because again, I'm just using Kelly for an example. And he was talking to me, and I know he wouldn't mind. He said, I was a serious alcoholic, and I was, involved in a lot of drugs. And I finally came, expiration date was due. Jesus said, that one's mine. And he said, I gave my life to Christ, and it was all taken away. So change can be, boom, just like that. But many times, for many of us, it seems like it's over time. And so change happens slowly. And there is conflict in change. And just because you've been given a new name doesn't mean that you don't have some old struggles. Some things that you still have to fight with. Just because you know the Lord doesn't mean that it's smooth sailing from there on in. And so he was called Jacob after this, and he was called Israel because it's over time. It's over, it takes time. Change is conflicting and complicated. That was what I was trying to think of, the word. Change is very complicated. And so many years later, and he had the same question answered. He had the same question asked. What is your name? Esau, 21 years ago. I'm Esau, but no, you're actually. And so we try to fool our neighbors, and we try to fool this person and that person, but you will never fool yourself, and you will never fool God. And God, remember this, God cannot bless who you pretend to be. God cannot anoint the mask. But when he came clean, who are you? This is a second chance. This is a second chance, by the way. Who are you? I'm Jacob. And so you move forward to Exodus chapter 3, verse 13. And this is awesome, and this is in closing. Isn't it good? I already said it. I already said this. And you go, well, God's never given me a name. Because I was just called Marty. And people tried calling me other names, I'm sure, but they're not good names. But God has actually given us a new name. And that's how I started it out. I said, aren't you glad that God doesn't call us what we did? Heel grabber, backstabber, deceiver. That's who he is. But God calls us what Jesus did. And who he is. He is righteous. He is loving. He is forgiving. He is all these things. That's who he calls us. Because of us giving our lives to him, having his blood cover us. He calls us what Jesus did, not what we did. So in the end, and this is a little bit further now. This is Exodus chapter 3, verse 13. And now, some people have passed, it has passed on. People have died, and now we are into Egyptian slavery. And are you guys still with me? We still remember the Jacob thing? Who are you? I'm Jacob. I've given up. I've chased too much. I've made bad choices, but you have never let me go. The chain of grace. Here I am. And he gave him a new name, Israel, but he wasn't called Israel all the time because change is complicated. And just because you ask Christ into your life doesn't mean your struggles are all going to go away. So we move forward. To me, this is powerful. Moses said to God, so Moses is like, he's got this word from the burning bush that you're supposed to go tell the people who I am, and that you're going to set them free. And Moses is quite worried about, they're not going to listen to me. What am I supposed to say that these people will listen? And so Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What's this God of your fathers? What's his name? What then shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the Israelites. The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Not Israel. the God of Jacob. This is what God's telling Moses to say. God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, if you want to get across what's going on, this is what you say. Say to the Israelites, the Lord of the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and the name which I am to be remembered from generation to generation. What I'm saying, what is powerful here, is that God, did you miss something here? Because you should have said the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Israel. You forgot his name. Remember, you changed it. But he doesn't. He said the God of Jacob, because he is the God of your victories, and he is the God of your defeats. He is the God of your success, and he is the God of your struggles. He is your God in the desert. He is your God when you are in lonely places. He is your God all the way around. And as Jacob, the heel grabber, he was his God. He is your God in every area of your life. And that's why he said it. Not just your victories, not just when you're feeling on top of the world, but when you are in the valley, he is your God. Isn't that awesome? To me, it's awesome because I fail, but he's still my God. He's just as powerful of a God in my valleys, and when I've done something wrong and I know it, I feel like an idiot, he's still my God. Amen. I'm pumped about that. Amen? Amen? God is so good.